Hi, welcome to the One Foot in the Grave podcast. I'm Dan.
I'm Jake.
And today we're back.
We survived. Dan is still alive.
Yet to find out what's actually wrong with me. But
yeah,
some hepatitis going on.
Really?
Remember how? My liver enzymes are up. I've got chronic fatigue, which I'm pretty sure is just the technical term for lazy.
Being lazy.
Yeah. And there's something going on with my heart.
What's going on with your heart?
No. I don't know. VPCs, PACs.
ABCs.
C's.
All the C's.
All the C's.
The disease.
It's diseased. I'm still quite loud. Hold on.
We're obviously not professional sound mixers. It's funny, if you listen carefully with your volume cranked, you'll be able to hear my voice playing back from Australia through Dan's headphones, then through his microphone.
It's the circle of sound.
Welcome to the One Foot in the Grave podcast.
Yeah, welcome back. Season 2.
Yeah. Season 2, will we call it? I don't know. We missed a couple weeks. Dan was dealing with his cardiac issues, and also his wife doesn't like us doing these.
And all I do is work. Last night, though, I went to a party because, I don't know if you would...
That's unlike you.
I know. I don't know if you'd call it I don't know what a party is anymore.
Was there a guy in a box who was no longer alive at the front of a room and people were talking about him? That's called that's a funeral.
Bugger.
Oh, it was a funeral. I went to a funeral yesterday.
I went to a funeral yesterday. I'm sitting here in my bedroom because the internets were not playing the game in the studio caravan. So I'm surrounded by... I realize as I sit here, I'd never sit in I've got a desk in our bedroom, and it's right in front of the television, which Aaron hates having in the bedroom. But I'd never sit here, and I've realized that I probably have a bit of a perfume problem. I've got an entire shelf approximately 4 feet in length that has got 2 perfumes lined up in it's covered in perfume. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Do you think your liver enzymes are somehow related? Like they're going to do a biopsy and be like, all we got back was Lacoste.
Fahrenheit. His temperature is really high because of the Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I have been drinking them, so that's probably not ideal.
Speaking of drinking, I mentioned it last time. The True Crime Garage podcast is really good.
Oh yeah,
and those guys, every episode starts with like the sound of a beer being poured. It sounds so tempting, but I met a guy from this local brewery here. It's called the Valenray Farmhouse Brewing Company, I think. Anyway, they make a Belgian triple, and I had every intention of drinking it tonight. But I got so drunk last night after Dad got out of the hospital, sitting there watching TV with him, that I just had to go for water tonight.
Well, it's so ironic that I always complain that I'm not allowed to drink while I'm doing this podcast. Well, I'm not allowed, but you know what I mean. Like, it would
just
be frowned upon
by
to be drinking
society's standards.
Yeah, like it's 10:30 in the morning. We officially kind of started at 10, but I had to fuck around for an hour trying to find a place that had internets.
I'm sorry.
No, it's your fault that my studio caravan is behind the house through a metal garage.
It could be solar flares.
Well, it's rainy AF here as well, so who knows? But
cloudy flares then.
Yeah, I can't drink anymore because of my liver. And I'm sad about that.
That's a shame. Are you taking too much Tylenol? I take a fuckload of it.
I thought I might be, but I don't take that much. Like,
realistically, you probably just have fatty liver like me.
Probably.
We're just fatty people and we have fatty livers.
But, like, I say that I'm really fat, but I'm not, like, obese fat. Like, I'm just... Well, I am, like, I think technically obese. But I'm not, like, one of those, like, people they do a television show about.
You're not in a mobility scooter.
No. And, like, yeah. Like
you don't eat KFC on the toilet.
No. So, like, I'm not, like, hideously fat. So I thought that, I mean, the reason
we're like harbor seal shape.
It's because the thought did cross my mind that potentially I do just have a fatty liver. But I just don't even know.
Now, Dad, who has had pancreatic cancer for how long? Like 16 months. Still has a fatty liver. Yeah. And I have a fatty liver.
But
and
he's
not
on steroids and stuff, though.
Yeah, I'm not. I just eat too much. But like you said, we're not morbidly obese. We're harbor seals, not walruses. Basically, we got maybe one roll, like of the panis, but not multiple rolls.
No, just a single shelf. I call it.
Do you have jaundice?
No.
Well, that's good.
Who's that? I do feel like I've got something stuck in my left eye for the last 5 days, though. You know,
don't tell Aaron.
Why? Might be pink eye.
We saw what you did to the horse.
Oh, I'll wake up with my lids stitched. She'll stitch my mouth shut too, just for the hell of it.
I think it's a corneal ulcer.
Yeah, non-responsive to rubbing. Oh my god, hold on, I'm so hot. I put my jumper on to go to the studio caravan, and oh my lord. Oh, there, that's so much better. I'm wearing a Pink Floyd shirt that I got from Kmart for $10.
Man, we should tell them, and then they could give you royalties for the 4 listeners we have.
I know. Hey guys.
Hey guys, I got the word out to all 4 of our listeners. Thank you, by the way, for anybody listening who didn't abandon us while we were away for 2 weeks.
Well, you know what? We've got
sickness happening.
We're still getting quite a following on Instagram. I know that you don't do much with the Instagram, but none of the people that are on there we paid for. So.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
how many do we have? I don't even know how Instagram works.
I think 90, but in Instagram terms, when you don't like, I think that's pretty good for just putting up photos for a podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, good.
Yeah.
So people are listening. Yeah, we got some friends out there.
They might be listening. They might just be looking at the weird photos that we post too.
So I need anybody who is a recurrent listener. I need to give you an update because this is really fucking funny. So do you remember the last time we were talking about how I have a really strong stomach for like guts and gore and stuff?
Oh yeah.
But like I said, you know, neurological damage stuff kind of turns my stomach a bit. But yeah. Well, the day after our last podcast, I had to go to pathology rounds. And usually pathology rounds, they'll show you like a specimen, like a prostate or whatever. And then, you know, that's what I was thinking this was. This was like the murder investigation rounds. So the case was this, I can't get into too much detail because there's the confidentiality stuff. But it was really...
My hair is all... My eyes... Oh, God.
Something's happened.
It's hard being me. Okay.
He's not really sick. He's just dying of frustration. Your liver enzymes are just responding to frustration.
Okay, so you were on murder rounds.
Yeah, the victim in this one was this huge fat guy, and it was a lunchtime round, so they gave you sandwiches and stuff, and I was eating this, and the sandwiches were gross. They were white bread with like a slab of meat in between, but nothing else, right?
Yeah.
So I was like disappointed about the sandwich because I'm a sandwich snob. I was eating it. And
go to the fucking rounds and now they're giving me a shitty fucking sandwich.
That's my inner voice was saying that. Fucking, this sucks. Why don't I just pay a little more money and get good sandwich? Fucking doctor. I've been in school for 14 years after high school.
I can afford a fucking sandwich. Fucking piece of white bread with fucking ham. Shit.
My fucking Subway, you fucking cheap assholes. Anyway, I could have gone to Subway. I didn't have to go to these rounds. Nobody checks up on me anymore. Here's a favor. So they show the big, dead, fat guy. I mean, they're doing the rounds. He's huge. He's like 400 pounds. I was like, oh. Eating my sandwich, watching this. And then the pathologist goes, and because it was like a penetrating injury, like a stab wound or whatever.
Yeah.
Or there was a possibility that that's what it was. He he died of a dirty ass because he couldn't reach it to wipe. No.
No.
So the next slide, he had dissected the guy down and like filleted each layer of tissue away from the other layer, so it looked like a giant, like, I don't know, he looked like a Christmas ornament laid out like with this huge layer of blubber, and then the muscles pinned open and everything down to like the bone and stuff. And there was like all his fat and the guts and stuff was hanging out. And I was eating that sandwich, and then I thought, oh man, I'm going to throw up. And I was like, it just hit me like, I need to throw up in rounds, and I don't know. I was in the pathology department. I was like, I don't know where there's a bathroom.
Where can I find some sort of cavernous thing to throw up into? Oh, a human abdomen.
So what I did was, we'd had the election the day before. I pretended that I was getting a text message about the election. I was like, oh, geez, I gotta, just give me 1 second, guys. And I like stepped out, and then I sat down on the first chair I found, put my head between my legs, and I was like rocking back and forth going, oh, don't throw up. Oh, don't throw up. And then another guy came out of the room right behind me, so I had to sit bolt upright and look like I was responding to the text, but really I was just thinking, oh man, please don't throw up here.
Don't puke, don't puke, don't puke.
Yeah. And then eventually I started actually checking the news on my phone, and then I forgot about the disgusting picture I just saw. So I went back in to the room, and I was like, okay, I'm okay. And I was kind of like laughing in my head because I was thinking of the horse's eyeball picture you sent me, and I was like, I just said how tough I was and how I don't get sick. And of course, God is just showing me that I'm a wuss after all. But then, so I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. I sat down, and like my sandwich is still there, and I started eating the sandwich to, like, give the impression that I wasn't just like about to hork. And the guy pulls out this dude's tongue and trachea out of a
nice.
little box, and it's just like hanging. This whole tongue, with unattached to everything, was just like flapping around in his hands. And I had the sandwich in my hand, and I was like, oh no. I just kept eating it. I was like, fuck, stomach through it. You're not going to vomit. You're going to get through this. Keep eating. You got to look tough. Anyway, it was
gosh. Hold on. I need to take an antihistamine now. I'm pretty much rotting from the inside. I'll be right back.
To our listeners, I suspect that he is just overdosing on over-the-counter medication, and that's why.
Dry swallowed it for the listeners, so it didn't take as long.
The old dry swallow.
You're welcome. You're welcome, listener. So today I'm going to talk about. Okay, so
can I take a guess about what you're going to talk about?
Well, it's not very good.
Well, I have it. I heard one, and I was like, "How have we not done this one yet?" And I was like, "I bet he does it tonight." Is it the Slender Man murders?
No.
Oh, damn! We got to do that one soon.
I mean, I bet it's the Slender Lady murders, but I'm going to talk about Ted Bundy. But the thing about Bundy is that not a lot of detail about his actual murders.
I know everybody kind of knows about him because he was so handsome.
Yeah, but like the murders themselves, like he denied it for decades, and then just before he got the chair, he was like, "Okay, I guess I did kill them all." But like there was no like BTK was like all about
bragging about people, what he did,
what he did, and that feeling of power. Where it seems like Bundy was just in it for himself.
Yeah. He was the other thing. It's hard to do Bundy in a unique way because that story's been covered a lot, but it is interesting, and I do know a few little factoids about it.
I don't. I didn't.
Ugh,
my eyes are so fucking itchy. Can you hear me like squitching them? Like it sounds like I'm. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with me. Fuck. My body is just like trying to destroy itself. I probably have some sort of autoimmune disease.
Wouldn't it be crazy if it turned out you were allergic to animals? And you had
I am. I have to take Zyrtec, which is like a. Oh, it's really raining out.
I can hear it.
It's a second generation antihistamine, if you must know. I take that
From
every
the good
single
people
day.
at Bristol Myers Squibb.
Squid.
I don't know. Is that what it's called?
No, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about Bundy.
You
What are
do Ted Bundy. I'm doing this Roland T. Owen, who is...
a blues singer?
No, it's an old... it's a famous sort of mystery. It's more on the paranormal side. But actually
Lord.
did happen.
Fuck me. Oh, jeez.
While you're itching your eye, I got to tell you about the thing I did to my son that traumatized him.
Oh,
But,
well, now that you've said it, you better really clarify.
So he'd gone through a phase, a toothy patch, and he's been a real little bugger for Chrissy. And like bedtime has been a constant fight. So he was fighting with Chrissy, and he wants a nighttime snack every night. She gave him one, and then he was like, I'm still hungry. And he came running downstairs, and he said, Dad, Mom lied to me. She said that I could have as much nighttime snack as I want, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you know what we do with liars? He said, what? I said, well, we kill them. He said, what? I said, no big deal. I'll call Dustin. He'll come and deal with Mummy. He's like, who's Dustin? I said, don't worry about it. I pretended to phone somebody, and I was like, hey, Dustin, it's Chrissy. She lied to Jack. She's a liar. Can you come take care of it? Okay. 4 minutes? All right, perfect. So then Jack said, who's Dustin? I said, oh, he's the guy who comes and, like, he's a hitman. He comes and kills people when they lie. It's like, what? I said, he wears clown makeup. I said, if you see him, run and hide, because he's not indiscriminate. He'll just kill whoever's in the house. And then I got in my car and drove away with Jack in the driveway.
Jeez.
So then I parked and I snuck back into the house, and I was laughing like the insane clown laugh.
Yeah.
And Jack was cowering up in the bathroom with Chrissy, and I was stomping up the steps doing the laugh. Ha ha! I'm here to get you. Anyway, he started screaming at the top of his lungs. No! So I opened the bathroom door like he fought me, wouldn't let me open it, and I opened it, and he saw it was me, and I said, "Now go the fuck to bed." Is Dustin really coming? Is Dustin coming? I said, no, I made him up. Go to bed. Fuck off.
Meanwhile, I tell my son that if he lies, his ears turn red.
Fuck.
So if he's telling a lie, he'll either cover his ears or say, "Are my ears red?"
Kids are so stupid.
I know.
I love it. I love taking advantage of their gullibility. They're sweet, but they're idiots. Speaking of ears, oh my God. Can I tell you about Cousin Sally? Like the real nightmare?
Oh, yes.
Ugh.
Mom filled me in briefly about this.
So this has been a horrendously shitty week. Cousin Sally is how old is she? 88?
No, something.
Anyway, she's old, but she's squat and rotund, and she talks like she's always out of breath, like that.
But she's smart. Like she's...
Oh, she's a genius, but also maybe the most selfish and irresponsible person I've ever met in my life. But anyway, so Dad is he's on chemotherapy. He has no immune system. Sally has pneumonia to the point that she's hacking up gobs of phlegm into Kleenexes, but then she won't throw them in the garbage. Just he's really struggling. Anyway, our cousin Sally, she'll like hack into these Kleenexes and then just chuck them on the floor. So she had on top of the pneumonia, she's requiring eardrops for an ear infection. Like a sick old animal. And, well, I was just explaining, on top of having this pneumonia, she's needed eardrops for her ears, like a sick old dog, right? I haven't put eardrops in a person, I don't think ever.
No,
but
well, it's something that most people are capable of doing themselves.
Anyway, she brings this like body that's just riddled and contaminated with germs over to my parents' place because she's anxious to stay alone. And, of course, Dad gets pneumonia from it. So he's been fucking sick. He got out of the hospital last night, but what a goddamn gong show this week has been. And he's still fucking sick.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another funny thing that he said yesterday when he was sick.
Yeah.
There's acupuncturist named Lydia Tong who lives here.
Oh, yeah. She used to go to a church.
So he said, I went to that Lydia Chang, and it was really helpful. And he goes, Chang? Chong? Tong. Lydia Tong. I knew it was a bell sound.
Jeez. I knew it was a bell sound.
I knew it was a bell sound. That's good. Anyway, do your murder.
I've just had a startling realization as I went to wash my eyeballs out.
What's that?
Do you think it's possible that the studio caravan could be full of toxic mold that's poisoning my liver as I breathe it in through my lungs?
I don't think it would get to your liver. I don't know. You've been exposed to something. It could be you had that cold the other day. You take handfuls of drugs.
No, I don't, though. I don't. Like, the thing is that when I stop at work, I'm in pain, and I usually will take, 2 Tylenol. But then that's the only time I get. So it's not like I'm taking, the maximum dose, right? I think I'm just dying from the inside.
Do you take any vitamins?
No.
You probably should have some vitamins.
I told the doctor, if this is hepatitis, it will be the most boring case of hepatitis ever. So Daniel, how many sexual partners have you had recently? 1. Okay. How about previous?
Recently? None.
Yes. How about previous sexual partners? No, just the 1. Do you take any illicit drugs? No. Have you had any needle stick injuries? Then how the fuck did you get this? I don't know.
Well,
Pepsi's airborne now.
I did lick that guy's asshole in Burma.
Gross.
He told me it held the antidote to my straightness.
Turns out it was just gross. All right. Well, speaking of licking assholes,
let's lick the asshole of true crime with the story about Ted Bundy.
Well, so Ted Bundy, he had a difficult childhood, and a strained relationship with his stepfather. He was shy, which made him a target for bullies, which seems to be a recurring thread in this, that there's some bullying happening early on in life.
I don't know if there's anybody you could find that has not been the target of bullies in their childhood.
Well, maybe
I think we read too much into this stuff.
Well,
although, did he have any head injuries?
Not that I could find.
Oh, that's a first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe he was dropped as a baby. He was really smart, though, and he went through college and developed what looked like a normal relationship with women. But then he still managed to be completely fucked up and kill more than 30 young women over the course of 4 years. He was eventually arrested and trialed for the death. So he killed all those people, but they only kind of got him on the death of, or the murder of 2 college students, where he was sentenced to death. And then he was again sentenced to death for the rape and murder of a 12-year-old girl. So they only officially had him for 3 murders, but he copped to 30 or 28 or something like that. Oh, okay. He was executed by electric chair in 1989 in Florida.
Electric chair in 1989.
I know, right? In Florida.
Now, apparently, that's the most painful form of capital punishment.
Well, I mean,
it's not fast.
And you know what, though? I just saw this thing. I don't know where I saw it or why it came up onto my feed. But it was executions gone wrong.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was like first, like actual footage, but it turned out to be a
one of those
dramatization. Yeah.
Or one of those top 10 videos on YouTube. Top 10 executions gone wrong. And then the voice is like, the Alesetric chair was used.
Alesetric chair, yeah. Well, you have heard about when they have not used natural sponge for the top of it and stuff, and that goes very badly.
Yeah, it melts the sponge.
Onto your face.
According to the Green Mile.
Yeah, according to Ranker.
Yeah.
So, or Board Panda.
And then Tom Hanks can't save you.
No, then you're just, one melted sponge. Melted sponge walking.
Yeah.
So anyway, they did this lethal injection, but it went terribly wrong. The guy didn't die. Anyway, so according to Ranker, it says 11 things Ted Bundy did to his victims, but I could only find 4 on the list. So thank you, Ranker. So he was a necrophile, which in itself is kind of gross. So often what would happen is that he would kill his victims, rape, kill, then go back days later and do more stuff to them until they
so it's not
putrefy.
Not just a fetish that you like the way people's necks look.
No. It was the whole thing. So he said he'd stop once the body started to putrefy or wild animals got to them. He didn't like to share.
That seems like...
He would eat their flesh.
Really?
Yeah. Well, this is according to Ranker. So he raped and murdered them, and then often would bludgeon them to death, and then rape with metal bars. So that's one fun bit of trivia for you. So let's just have a little looky-loo. Okay. So this is what I could find. So this is from Wikipedia, of course, my trusted source of true crime. So it's unknown when he started to murder, but he refused to divulge the details of his crimes, and denied a lot of the crimes until his execution. He probably didn't kill until 1971, though he did kidnap someone in 1969. But most psychologists...
the summer of love and kidnapping.
Isn't that when men landed on the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some people...
So the kidnapping story kind of got buried.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man lands on moon. Also someone was kidnapped. We'll put it under the fold.
Most believe that he was killing as early as when he was a teenager. But he was very skilled, even at a young age, at leaving no trace evidence behind. But this was before the time of DNA.
Yeah, he used to, if I'm not mistaken, he used to take people's teeth out so they couldn't match dental records, and he would cut off their hands and heads and bury them separately from the bodies so that they'd be harder to identify.
Well, yeah, he did sever heads and kept 12 of them, I think, in his apartment as trophies. There's a fucking eyelash in my eye. In my good eye. It's in my good eye.
I mean, yeah, all these murders were tragedies, but you want a real tragedy. Try getting an eyelash in your eye.
Yeah, you should see how red my fucking eyes are. So, he was a serial killer, kidnapper, rapist, burglar, and a necrophile. All right, so murders between 1974...
But if you could get past all that, he was a pretty good guy.
Yeah. Well, he was a sociopath. So, well, I think he was a sociopath.
Well,
and
yeah.
So he was able to trick a lot of people into thinking that it was normal. Oh, my eyeball. Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
I had to scratch my head. He's really struggling. I don't know. I hate to see him this way, younger brother. But it's the price we pay for being fat, lazy, and taking absolutely no care of ourselves whatsoever. Just a lot of these little bumps in the road of lifetime health. I'm excited. I won't lie to you. I'm excited about my Roland T. Owen story. Although, with the quality of this podcast, you could just Google it and probably get the info that way. You know, a lot of silent stuff happening. A lot of space to fill, and I'm not real good at filling it on my own. I'm hoping he'll actually take the time to edit this out, but by the sounds of things, he's got his hands full with itchy eyeballs.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. Good.
All right. So, hold on.
The kids are up in the house.
I'm just going to send you a little photo of my eyeballs.
The reaction video side of this podcast. We started out with noble intentions. We went on a ghost tour. We did do a ghost tour together, and it was fun, and we had a lot of laughs. And now it's turned into looking at pictures of fucked up eyeballs and fucked up horses.
Fucked up horses' eyes or fucked up my eyeballs.
You look like a surprised Korean man. You should post that on our Facebook page.
This is why this
Eyeballs Part 2.
This is why this podcast is of no good. All right. So his victims thought he was charismatic and handsome, and he exploited that to win their trust. And he would often approach them as in public and pose as someone who is injured or disabled. I don't think mentally disabled. I'm thinking probably
like a handicapped veteran.
Yeah. Or he would impersonate an authority figure.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, the murders that I can find, what basically started to happen is that people from, like, these young women from universities started to just disappear randomly, and it turned out to be, like, it averaged at about one a month, which to me just seems crazy that they weren't, like, cluing in that maybe they shouldn't be walking by themselves at nighttime. But January 4th, 1974, he entered the basement apartment of an 18-year-old Karen Sparks. He bludgeoned her senseless with a metal rod from her bed and then assaulted her with the rod, causing severe internal injuries. She was unconscious for 10 days but survived with physical and mental disabilities. Then on February 1st, he went into the basement again of Linda Healy and beat her unconscious and dressed her in jeans and a white shirt and carried her away. I don't know if they ever found her. 1970. Oh my God! Can you hear my children? It's driving me fucking mental.
Well, they sound like cockatoos in a way. We'll just pretend there's a bird cage in the
room. I feel like I'm caged.
I feel like a rat in a trap, and the children are poking me with a stick.
March 12th, Donna Gale Mason was on her way to a jazz concert, but she never arrived. Then April 17th, Susan Elaine Rancourt went missing on her way to her dorm after an evening advisors meeting. Then 2 Central Washington students report encounters with a man wearing an arm sling asking for help. So this was on the night that Susan Elaine Rancourt went missing. They saw a man with an arm sling asking for help carrying loads of books to his VW Beetle, which was tan in color. So in the history of crime, museum somewhere, they've got his actual VW Beetle, and it is a tan color. May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks left to have coffee with her friends, but never arrived. Police say that there wasn't much in common, but they were young, youthful, and pretty... Youthful. They were young, pretty college students, basically. Then, June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball left... Oh, Lord. Oh, it's you.
I just tried to do the same face.
You can't. There's no way that you can
because I'm not as allergic.
Because this feels like I'm at Nanny Swan's house.
Oh yeah, that was the Dander house.
Oh, God.
Nanny Swan had a bunch of dogs all through her life and never vacuumed the carpet, so she had a dander carpet. And every time you walked in, you instantly had an asthma attack.
It was horrendous. There you go, another little view for you.
I'm putting all these up on our Facebook page in real time.
No, you're not. Are you?
Oh yes, yeah, for sure.
Well, here, let me give you at least a good one.
If it's a picture of your butthole with little pinworms sticking out of it.
Oh.
I could never be a veterinarian because of the worms.
I've never seen worms.
Really?
Uh-huh. Maybe once. And there you go, buddy. It's a up close and personal one. If anyone can give me a diagnosis for what the fuck is going on with my body, from looking at these eyes, maybe you're one of those people that can diagnose cancer by the color of your iris. Tell me. All right.
I think you've been scratching at it.
There's something in my eye, and it's my finger. Right. So on June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball, she left the Flame Tree Tavern, and she was last seen speaking to a brown-haired man with his arm in a sling. Sorry, I can't read my writing. And then June 11th, I don't know, I think it's maybe George Ann Hawkins, vanished while walking down a brightly lit alley between her boyfriend's dorm and her sorority house. After her disappearance was publicized, people came forward saying that she saw a man with crutches and a leg cast struggling to his car with a briefcase. And one recalled him asking for help with his case to get to his car, which was a tan VW Beetle.
Yeah, it was gold. It was like a gold-colored V-dub, and I think that's how they caught him in the end.
Well, the other thing that I don't like, that's commitment to, like, feigning
acting the part.
Yeah, like that's hard. That's hard to put a cast on your freaking leg.
But is it any harder than what the BTK guy had to do to like track his victims and stalk them beforehand? You know, these guys are really into craft.
Killing. Yeah.
You know, all the trouble they have to go to and all the risks that are involved, killing people must be. I mean, it must feel amazing.
Oh, jeez. No, I'm sure it doesn't. Unless you're making Horcruxes.
It must be totally incredible. Because if you know the consequences if you get caught, it's got to be the best feeling in the world.
Well, I think, but
just
these
choking
people
out some poor male prostitute in your basement.
Well, I mean, I don't think that they really take that stuff into consideration. Like, I get it. Like, he wasn't leaving any clues behind, but at the same time, like, he can't
it's a compulsion. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, he can't... Whoa. He can't be thinking... Is that what?
That was... My son sits in my office and uses my work computer to play fucking Roblox, which is the stupidest game in the world. Anyway, sorry. He's got all his shit under my desk and I keep hitting it with my feet.
So at the time of he was doing all these murders and committing all these murders, he was actually working for the Department of Emergency Services, which helped search for missing women. So,
right.
And that's where he met his eventual wife, I think. I don't know. But I plan to do a part 2 of Bundy because there's a whole second thing of murders that I just couldn't be bothered looking at.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, we'll anticipate part 2, assuming you survive the week and don't die of allergies.
Oh my gosh. His throat closed up and his eyeballs fell out.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, if that does happen, the pathologist will be kind with your tongue and epiglottis.
Did they
waggles it around the room.
Did I call it the pluck in humans?
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe
serial killers do.
Well, if you're in an abattoir, they take out your tongue, your trachea, and
Well, not yours,
lungs.
the animals.
Yes, well, in some cases yours.
You want to work here? We got to pluck your tongue out.
Yeah, but they call it the pluck, and it's like a good thing if you get it all in one go. So like you get tongue, epiglottis, trachea, and lungs all in the one go.
How have there ever been, to your knowledge, serial killers that had a job in an abattoir? Because I would have to assume a slaughterhouse person.
Well, I know that a lot of them actually commit murders, but I don't know if it's if they're serial killers.
But a lot of them, I mean, it's got to be the last job in the line that they can get, right? Because they're meth addicts or whatever. So maybe that's why there's a higher rate of murder. But I don't know of any like serial killers who work in an abattoir, because it seems like a place that they would like to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're like cutting things up.
Apparently, I'm just checking my sources, Wikipedia. So there was one named Catherine Knight. Is the first Australian woman to be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. She was convicted of the murder of her partner, John Charles Thomas Price, in October 2001. He was stabbed to death, skinned him, and then put his skin on a meat hook and cooked his head and parts of his body with the intention of feeding them to his children. Oh, Lord.
Holy fuck. Even for this podcast, that was a dark turn.
I don't know why it's come up under abattoir. I wonder if she worked in an abattoir.
She must have, or she just slaughtered
them.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
there are pictures. No.
Yeah. No, she was released in August 1976 into the care of her mother-in-law, and she moved to Woodridge, a suburb of Brisbane, where she obtained a job at Dinmore Meatworks. That's where I did my...
you're kidding.
No, that's
your veterinary at the slaughterhouse rotation.
It was the worst week of my life, and it was like, it does not surprise me that these fucking crazy people work there.
So that's that's what I mean. It is the last stop. When you can't work anywhere else, there's always killing and butchering cows.
Yeah.
How fucked up is it that, did they look at her resume and be like, well, she knows how to skin things and boil heads. Let's get her on board.
Well, no, but it does. I think there are a lot of ex-cons that work there, and it's because, like, I don't know why they all are gravitated towards that. I guess maybe it's a way of getting your aggression out without actually committing murder. But yeah, a lot of people go home. They take a lot of ice too, so because it's in the middle of the night. It's a 24-hour job. So yeah, they take ice to stay awake at night.
What's that? Wait, ice, the drug you mean, like crystal meth?
Yeah, crystal meth. And then a lot of them go home and like, mostly are men, but they go home and they butcher their wives. Yeah, I mean it's not like a prerequisite.
They were having a meth dream kind of thing, and they just assumed the wife was.
Yeah, probably. Oh man, it was the most fucked up place in the whole world. They pay the vets there so much money, but there's only one person from my class that worked at an abattoir. But holy shit, yeah, it's crazy.
That'd be like being a doctor on death row, and you're just the guy who's like, you know what, fuck everything about the ethics of my profession. I'm just going to kill people for a shitload of money.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's where this came up, because we were having that discussion about doctors on death row and who actually administers the drugs and stuff. And it turns out that it's just like people who take a weekend course and are responsible. A weekend
course. Do we have any volunteers?
Yeah. Well, they get paid a lot. They get paid a lot. And they do it remotely. So the person's in a room, and then all the drugs are in syringe drivers on the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't know what they're doing, and they do it out of sync. And
is it like the old firing squads where like 5 of the syringes have saline and 1 has the drug, and you don't know which one you filled up?
I think these people are very aware that they're killing somebody, which is gross.
I'm not down with the death penalty, and I hate shit hats like the BTK killer and stuff. I really sincerely don't like. I don't want them as part of society, but I also know that, like, in my job, I'm fucking extremely well trained. Probably as well trained as a Supreme Court justice is in the law. You know, that's how well trained a subspecialist doctor is in what their subspecialty is. And I fucking make mistakes all the time. Yeah. And so, you know, I'd rather know that we're not going to kill an innocent person than... Anyway, so I'm not really... I'm kind of... I don't really have a strong political leaning one way or the other, but...
Well, I just don't think it's fair because...
I just think you could fuck it up.
Well, no, but it's an easier way out. I reckon, like, eternity in prison... oh, bless you.
Excuse me. I think I'm catching your dander
pink eye
from here.
Well, okay, I'm going to come back to this... this whole thing, but I you know, it sounds crazy and it's very science fiction-y, but often when Mum has a cold in Canada and we FaceTime, I'll come down with a cold like a week later, and I'm wondering if maybe like some sort of transportation is happening.
like the particles are turned somehow by the by the electronic. It's like Tron. There's a germ. There's a cold virus on a little like miniature motorcycle that's like zipping down through the wire. That movie sucked, by the way, Tron. I know it had a big following. Even the original, and I like the actor, Jeff Bridges.
Well, it was just a stupid concept.
Yep.
Like
the whole thing was...
That's the problem.
This is a movie... This is a techie movie about how computers work by somebody who knows nothing about how computers work.
Yeah. Well, they're building a Tron coaster at Disney World now, I think.
That's so boring.
Yeah.
That's so boring.
What was I saying? Something?
Roland T. Owen podcast. You want me to get to... Oh, that was the name of the notes when you make your note in your phone. I called it Roland T. Owen podcast. Oh. Just to clarify, you're still listening to the One Foot in the Grave podcast, or what's left of it. But all right. You want me to tell you this guy?
Yeah.
I can do it. I can do it all in one. It won't be too long. So this one's cool. You may have heard it as the Mystery of Room 1046. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Is that like the Stephen King story?
No, that's the Room 13 something, but kind of. I think they're based on this story.
1608 or something like that, where it's like the devil lives in there or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not. Like I said, early Alzheimer's probably. I'll watch it again. It'll be like the first time all over again.
Is that the one with
John Cusack?
Yeah. Oh fuck, that was the worst. I mean, it was good, but I didn't like the ending.
Oh really? Did you ever? Now I can't watch a lot of Stephen King movies. Half of them are terrible, and half of them are really depressing. But the ending of The Mist, I don't want to.
I didn't watch The Mist. Is that on Netflix at the moment?
Now, I think the book ends differently than the movie. I'm hoping, because I'm going to give the book a try. But the ending of the movie was so horrendous.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna blow it for you. But if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway,
have you seen Big Mouth?
No,
it's on Netflix. My friend Caesar got me onto it, and I thought it was just a cartoon, but it's so bad, and it's so good. It's very inappropriate, and you should watch it.
Okay, it'll be right up my alley. Also on Netflix, before I start the story, the show called The Good Cop with Tony Danza and some other guy is great. It's so underrated. It's foolish. It's not like they didn't spend any time writing it, but it's awesome, and it's got Clay Davis from The Wire in it. Okay, Roland T. Owen. Let me transport you back to magical Kansas City in January 2nd, 1935. So it's a Wednesday at 1:20 p.m., this guy, using the name Roland T. Owen, checks into the Hotel President, Kansas City, room 1046. He mentioned during check-in that he was from Los Angeles. The lady who checked him in guessed his age between 20 and 35, noticed he had a cauliflower ear, which is like, from boxing.
Yeah.
They get and he had a scar on his scalp, visible above the ear. Otherwise, good-looking guy, brown hair. There's a bellboy takes him up to his room. The bellboy's name's Randolph Probst, which in 1935, I guess America hadn't gone full on into World War II, but that'd be a tough name to live with for the next 10 years. So Randolph brings him up, but the guy doesn't have anything with him. He says the only luggage he had was a brush, a toothbrush, a comb, and toothpaste. The maid is named Mary Soapdick. And she said he let her clean the room with him in it and asked her not to lock the door because his friend was coming to visit. He just left one dim lamp on while she cleaned around him. And she said he seemed very nervous, like he was worried about something or anxious anyway.
The war.
The war. Could have been what was happening in Europe at the time. A troubling time for our troops. Okay, so she came back at 4 p.m. with towels. These maids and their towels. You don't get this kind of service anymore.
No,
it's 4 p.m. Maybe I should bring some new towels. Have you used all your towels yet, sir? I know you only checked in 3 hours ago. 6 more towels for this room.
If you hang them up, I won't change them tomorrow. But if you want new ones, just put them in the bathtub.
Just leave them in the toilet. Oh. Speaking of that, so at the hospital I work at, did I tell you somebody pooped on the upper toilet tank?
No. Yeah, you did, actually, you did.
And the guy I was working with said, it was an upper decker. I looked it up later, and an upper decker is actually when you take the top off the toilet tank, poop in the water, and then put the top back on. So every time people flush the toilet, shit comes down into the toilet.
No. That's the worst.
Save that for someone you really hate.
Yeah, because,
you'd have to get a new toilet. There's no... There's no way around that. There's always going to be poop.
I put my hand into that water, and I'm like, it's okay. I know it's toilet water, but it's the clean toilet water. Oh, no.
Yeah, and apparently that's a common prank. Anyways, Mary Soapdick came back with her towels and said this guy was lying on his bed with the door unlocked, in the dark, wearing all his clothes. There was a note in the room that said, "Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait," even though he was lying there. So the next morning, Mary Soapdick came back to clean, and the door had been locked from the outside. So I guess in those days you could, if you're leaving the hotel, you could lock it with a key, right?
Yep.
And I don't know how she could tell, but she knew it had been locked from the outside. She assumed he was out, and but when she went in, he was sitting. Went in to clean. He was sitting inside with the lights off. Just a second. My notes don't make a lot of sense here. He was sitting inside with the lights off, meaning someone had locked the door with him inside. Okay, I guess that does make sense. So somebody had locked him in the room. Somebody else had the key.
Yeah.
While she's cleaning, he gets a phone call. He answers it and he says, "No, Don, I don't want to eat. I just had breakfast. No, I'm not hungry." So at 4 p.m., again, she comes back with towels and hears 2 voices. "Who is it?" She says, or they say, and she says, "Fresh towels." Like your friend Dale. "You want some fresh towels?"
Room service.
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
You want fresh towels?
That's what it was.
Anyway, they say, "We don't need any," even though there were no towels left in the room. This is a crazy... I don't know where the facts from this mystery come from, but it's well documented. That night, the woman 1048 complained about a loud male voice and loud female voices. But there was a party going on in room 1055, so no one's 100% sure if it was which room it was from. The next morning, January 4th, 7 a.m., the hotel phone operator noticed that Owen's phone was off the hook. So the bellboy, Randolph Probst, went up. There's a do not disturb sign on the door, but they're concerned about this phone. Like, this is back in the day when they had an operator who had to take care of all the phones. So if one's off the hook, they're like, "Hey, we're paying a lot for these phones." So he knocks anyway, and a voice says, "Come in, turn on the lights." However, the door was locked. Eventually, Probst says, "Sir, can you put your phone back on the hook?" He assumed Owen was drunk at the time because the voice was kind of funny. At 8:30 a.m., Harold Pike, another bellboy, was again sent up because the phone was still off the hook. He let himself into the room and Owen was in bed, naked, and seemed to be drunk. He noticed that the bedding was darkened around where Owen was lying.
Ew.
So instead of reacting to that, he put the phone on the hook and left.
That's pretty much what I would do. Can you go?
We're just waiting for
this.
We're just waiting for this murder to ferment a little bit longer.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put your phone on the hook, sir. Bye.
Yeah, squirt. At 10:30 to 10:45, they noticed the phone was once again off the hook. They sent this poor bastard Randolph Probst back up to the room. And he says, and this is a quote, "When I entered the room, there was a man on his knees and elbows within 2 feet of the door, holding his head in his hands. I assume not in like a cheery way. That's me paraphrasing. I noticed blood on his head. I then turned the light on. I noticed blood on the walls, in the bed, and the bathroom. This frightened me, and I immediately left the room and went downstairs." I'm not sure if the police were called at this point.
Well, I wonder if this guy was like a legal immigrant or whether he was... Well, was there such a thing back then? I don't know.
Well, we'll get to some theories. So eventually they did call the police. They found this Richard Owen guy tied up with a cord around his neck and wrists and ankles. He had been tortured. He had multiple head injuries and a skull fracture. He was stabbed in the chest. He had a punctured lung, bruising around the neck, but he was still alive when they arrived. The detective asked him if anyone else had been in the room, and he replied, "Nobody. I fell against the bathtub."
You say a word and I'll kill you. Make something up.
Fell against the bathtub. And I was carrying this lamp cord, and it just all... It was such a discombobulation. So doctors assumed his injuries had happened 6 to 7 hours prior to the discovery of him on the floor. So before they found him lying in the bed and then left. There was no weapon found in the room. There were 4 fingerprints on the phone that looked female. I don't know how they know, but I guess they were small. He died after midnight on January 5th. Yeah, exactly. So he'd said he was from Los Angeles, but the LA authorities had no record of him. And nobody knew who this guy was. They just had the name he'd given them. So they sent him to the Melody McGinley Funeral Home for viewing. Why would he have a viewing? Nobody knows who he is. Anyway, they did it, though. He was going to be put in a potter's field, which is like a graveyard for the poor with no markers or whatever. But an anonymous caller donated money for a proper funeral. Money came bundled in a newspaper to the funeral home from an anonymous sender on March 23rd. And then flowers were anonymously arranged from the Rock Funeral Company, along with a card that said, "Love Forever, Louise," that was placed on the grave. A year and a half later, in 1936, a lady named Ruby Ogletree read an American Weekly piece chronicling the case. Ruby identified Owen as her son, Artemus Ogletree, who had left Birmingham, Alabama in 1934. He was only 17 years old at the time. Ruby had received 3 letters from her son in the spring of 1935 after these murders. These were received after his death and had been typed instead of handwritten. They say he didn't know how to type. I mean, how do you not know how to type? It's just hit the fucking key. Now, I know you also had to go with the typewriter, but you can learn that in 5 seconds.
I mean, a monkey can do it.
I'm not sure that's definitive proof that this isn't your son.
Didn't know how to type.
He wouldn't send me a typed letter. He never learned to type.
He had no fingers. That would be the only thing that I could think of.
That's so fucked up. Anyway, they said he didn't know how to type, and the letter's tone was unfamiliar to Ruby. It was later discovered that Artemus had stayed at the St. Regis Hotel in Kansas City with another man, possibly Don. In the early 2000s, Dr. John Horner wrote extensively about the murder and received a call from someone saying they found a box full of newspaper clippings about the case in a deceased elderly person's possessions. The person said there was something else in the box that had been mentioned in the newspaper articles, but didn't say what it was. Oh, that hadn't been mentioned, I assume is what I was supposed to write. Then the case disappeared into obscurity. So, a couple theories here. It was 1935. Young man waiting for his buddy Don. I wonder if this is some kind of lover's tryst gone wrong. You know what I mean? Maybe Don is like a self-loathing homosexual and they kind of got together and then he murdered him.
So like he didn't fall against the bathtub, you mean?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It could be the case. Yeah. The elevator operator described what he called a commercial woman going to the 10th floor, and there was some theory that maybe that was Don's wife, and maybe they were having a threesome. Maybe there was some jealousy happening, and he got murdered that way. You know what I mean? This is my conjecture. None of this is mentioned. Mm-hmm. She said she was looking for 1026 to meet a man she couldn't find, but maybe she was mistaken about the room number. But then she was also seen with a man from the 9th floor, and fingerprints on the phone were thought to be female, but they couldn't track down who this woman was. Then a guy called the newspaper after the story broke about who this was. Before they knew it was Artemis, but the guy who called the newspaper said Owen had cheated on his girlfriend and was going to be buried by his sister, not in a pauper's grave. I guess that's the guy who donated money.
Yeah, like the anonymous guy, yeah.
Exactly. So maybe his girlfriend had found out about it. Maybe her name was Louise and she killed him or had him killed. And then the Rock Funeral Home said the guy who sent the flowers said, I'm doing this for my sister. So maybe the sister is Louise. Anyway, it was a hell of a mystery and just a lot of weird behavior happening on old Artemis Ogletree's part leading up to his death. And I thought it was an appropriate case to discuss on the One Foot in the Grave podcast.
Well, what about the bellboy not actually doing anything about it?
That's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he was surrounded by a dark stain. I thought he'd shit himself.
Yeah, well,
that's the only excuse.
Yeah, exactly. That, and I would be like, ugh. Like,
oh God!
I totally, like that internal struggle that you have when you see something that you're like you should, because of society, help.
Yeah.
You're like, can I just pretend that I did not see this? You're like, how bad is that? I will often do that. Sorry, people at work with dog shit in cages. I'm just like, walk by, giant turd. I'm like, okay, wait 5. What's that smell? Oh, can you check? Just have a little checky check.
I got in trouble from one of our nurses for just that, just pretending to ignore. I just ignored the shit that was in the guy's bed before we shuffled. I was like, I'm not gonna put on gloves and I'm not gonna move him. I know he shit himself and I'm just gonna walk out of the room.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but in human stuff, like, I feel like nurses are going to be a lot better at doing that than you would be.
Apparently, the trick when somebody shit themselves a long time ago and it's all stuck to their ass is to use shaving foam to get it off. I learned that.
Yeah.
I feel like every day I learn something new.
Hard pass. I put them in the dental bin and I just hose them down. So
the dogs?
Yeah. That's the trick.
The other thing, you can euthanize them.
Yes. Yeah. There was nothing we could do.
It's all matted in his tail fur. Just kill him. We'll say he had a heart attack. We'll tell him he had a heart attack.
I think Pete, my dog Pete, is not long for this world. We've re-x-rayed his chest and the nodules are infinitely more. Do
you think he has like tuberculosis or something?
Maybe, or maybe it's like a fungal infection. Though he's not really coughing all that much, and he doesn't have a fever or anything. But I'm pretty sure.
What's a normal dog temperature?
38.5 degrees Celsius.
So they run a little hot.
They run a little hot. Yeah. 37.5 to 38.5. Yeah.
I'm sorry about Pete. But, you could try him on antifungals or antibiotics.
No.
Again.
We're doing Pred, and I decided that we'll try him on some furosemide.
Well, you see, if the nodules are getting worse on the prednisone, then maybe it is an infection because they
I
will
know,
get
but
worse on prednisone.
Yeah, but they're still like structured, right? So if it was a fungal infection, it'd be more diffuse. I don't think you'd have nodular changes. So
It depends on the fungus. Aspergillus.
well,
anyway,
it could be aspergillosis. Would be hilarious. I should tell Erin, and she can do a BAL before we give him the injection.
the needle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we give him the old Ted Bundy.
Well, listeners, that brings us back to sometimes our beloved pets get sick and die. Anyway, have a great day, guys.
Yeah, tune in next time for our comedy/animal lover podcast.